What's good, y'all? It's your boy Guru Kid 2000 here. Got a new video for y'all. Let's talk about Archie Sonic for a second. So, the Archie comics for Sonic the Hedgehog, they're currently the #1 longest running video game based comics of all time. So there are a lot of stories to tell from it, and there are a few moments in the series where things get pretty serious. A lot more serious than you'd imagine for like a regular Sonic comic or show, or even the video games. And yes, it's probably even edgier than the stuff that happens in the Shadow The Hedgehog video game, if you've ever played that or seen the cutscenes for that. So right now I just want to present to you 5 moments in which the Archie Sonic series itself got serious. Number 1. Eggman traps Sniffly for eternity. So you know how in the classic Sonic games you have those capsules where you had to free the animals from, like in Sonic 1, Sonic 2. In the early classic Sonic games you had those capsules where you just had to free those animals after you defeat Dr. Eggman or Dr. Robotnik. Well, what if I told you that Eggman used one of those very capsules to keep a human inside? It sounds kind of dark, right? And it's not just any human, it was his own nephew for the rest of his life. So you're probably wondering, like, how did it come to this? How could this happen? Well, beforehand, if you don't know who Sniffly is a character in the Sonic the Hedgehog comics who is Dr. Eggman's nephew. Beforehand, Sniffly had worked alongside the Eggman Empire, but afterwards he betrayed Eggman and fled. He wanted to save the Iron Queen. The Iron Queen was pretty much his girlfriend. And before all this, Eggman would mock Sniffly, telling him that he would never find love, and that he had to choose between the Iron King and the Eggman Empire. So afterwards, Sniffly finally stood up to himself and decided to go save her. However, Eggman eventually tracked him down, and it was terrible. Sniffly and Eggman fought. Sniffly thought he had the upper hand at first, but Eggman ended up winning the battle, so Sniffly lost. Later on, once they're back at the Eggman Empire, Eggman puts the Iron Queen in charge of the Dark Egg Legion, which is pretty much Eggman's egg fleet. It's Eggman's army. And she only agrees to be a part of this army and be in charge of it because Eggman presents Sniffly to her, so she feels that she can be with Sniffly forever. But it actually turns out that the Sniffly that she's with is actually just a robot decoy that Sniffly made before, but Eggman took advantage of. So she never knew that that was the real Sniffly. Now the real Sniffly is actually stuck in a capsule, one of those bird capsules that Eggman puts in there. And Eggman pretty much tells him that Sniffly's going to be there for the rest of his life. And you know what's sad about that? He is there for the rest of his life. Like, before the comics ended, he would have still been there for the rest of his life. And that's kind of tragic. Number 2. Sadly, Acorn gets roboticized. So, in this arc, Eggman wants to use this device called the Genesis Wave to roboticize an entire planet. Now, the Super Genesis Wave, it's a very powerful machine. Afterwards, he's able to use it to warp the entire multiverse, but that's a story for another day. For now, he's trying to just roboticize the entire planet. So, in order to stop this, Sonic and Sally run inside to try and stop him. So, Sally goes to the core so that they can prevent all this from happening, and her plan is to have Nicole, the AI, invert the beam that's going to do the destruction to the planet. But in turn, she would not be immune to the roboticization. So she thinks about Sonic one last time and she saves the day. But in return, she becomes Mega Sally as a drawback. So she pretty much sacrificed her life for everyone else. And what makes this moment even more serious is the fact that Sally, she just never reverts back to her original form, despite all their efforts, and she's just Eggman's lackey. It's just Eggman's robot for the rest of the comic series. And yeah, that's tragic if you ask me. Number 3. Scourge confronts Sonic's dad. So if you don't know who Scourge is essentially Sonic the Hedgehog, but he's from an alternate universe, one that's pretty much the opposite of Sonic's, like the complete opposite. And you know, he's actually originally called the Anti-Sonic back in his world, so you can imagine that it's pretty much like the anti of Sonic's world. So one night, Scourge went to Sonic's house because he wanted to kill him in his sleep. But he was confronted by Jules. If you don't know Jules is Sonic's dad. And yeah, Sonic's dad does exist in the comics. It's pretty cool that he has a dad in the comics. Only problem is that he's been roboticized, and you know, that's a whole other story, but he's pretty much roboticized. So they have a deep conversation just about everything that he wants to do. and it gets tense really fast. So Jules tells Scourge that Sonic's world is full of heroes, which must mean that Scourge's world is full of cowards, according to how the worlds complement each other. And it turns out that Jules is part of a war called the Great War, while in Scourge's world, since it's the opposite of their world, it was called the Great Peace. So there was no war at Scourge's time, but there was a war in Sonic's place. It was because of this great peace that Scourge's father never gave him any attention, and that's part of the reason why Scourge is so evil and he's doing the stuff that he's doing right now. But regardless, Jules still embarrasses him. He tells him that Sonic would still miss Jules if Jules had died. And, Scourge never had this connection with his father, and that makes Scourge cry, and it prompts him to leave without killing Sonic or Jules. So it's kind of a sad moment for Scourge, like it makes you feel for him despite him being the evil one. Number 4, Eggman takes over. So, in this issue, Dr. Eggman sends his egg fleet to ambush Sonic and their friends while they're relaxing. And they had just come back from Bonnie and Antoine's wedding. Yeah, they just got married that day, and all of a sudden, they just start attacking. Dr. Eggman just starts attacking. Sniffly tears through the roof, and there's just a lot of destruction outside. It's crazy. Sonic runs outside to see what's happening, but all the sites have been destroyed. Even the castle itself is being destroyed. Meanwhile, it turns out that all of Sonic's friends, they're being teleported away by Dr. Eggman. And Sonic was initially thinking that they were being vaporized because that's how the comics made it look. It made it look like they were all being vaporized, which is nuts. So you could already tell that Sonic was kind of pissed by that. So when Sonic confronted Eggman, he was like, "Eggman, you vaporized my friends." But Eggman actually tells him that they were being sent to these machines called the Egg Grapes. And technically, so they weren't dead, but it was kind of doing something worse than that, because the Egg Grapes, what they do is they suck out the life force of these people to power Eggman's machines. And that's kind of dark if you think about it. He just took all his friends and he's sucking the life force out of them. That's nuts. Like, it's pretty dark if you ask me. So eventually Sonic and Dr. Eggman, they start fighting, and Eggman seems to have the edge. And it kind of sucks because what Eggman is pretty much telling Sonic is that he could have defeated Sonic this entire time. And with the way things were, it's something that's actually pretty evident there. Like, Eggman could have defeated Sonic anytime he wanted to, but he waited for his moment, and it was happening right now. And we know this because he's destroyed the whole village, and now he's beating Sonic. Like, he's actually beating him pretty bad. Like, you can look at the comic strip yourself. It was pretty bad. And during all this, he just continues to taunt Sonic, talking about all his failures from not being able to de-roboticize his father. You know how I told you that he was roboticized, and Sonic couldn't de-roboticize him. So Eggman taunted him because he couldn't do that. And then he also talked about his relationship issues, like how Sonic couldn't get with Sally or Amy or whatever. Like, it's nuts. Eggman was really hitting Sonic deep. So because of this, Sonic finally snaps and he tries to go all out to stop Eggman. But even Archie Sonic going all out isn't enough to stop Dr. Eggman. It's just not enough. And what happens is that it was so bad, like, Eggman just beats him up and leaves him in the dust. Eggman's final words are for Sonic to run away. Say that Sonic could run away as much as he wants, but he should know that he'll never be able to run from the humiliation that he just experienced. That's bad. Like, that's pretty serious. Like, Sonic actually lost for the first time, which is nuts. Last but not least, we have number 5, Sonic vs. 80 AM. So, Tommy Turtle, this guy Tommy Turtle, that was pretty much one of Sonic's childhood friends in the Archie comics. It turns out he was also a freedom fighter. Tommy, he was pretty much he was on the tech side, just like Tails and Rotor and other people in the freedom fighters. And during one time, Eggman's artificial intelligence, which is 80 AM, that was Eggman's AI machine. He ended up to take control of Tommy's body, and Tommy's body, his shell had some nanites in it, so 80 AM took control of those and ended up taking control of Tommy in turn. So that made him the host for 80 AM's body. So now Tommy didn't have control over whatever he did, and that made 80 AM take his body and do evil deeds with him. And one of those evil deeds would be to start the Gathering, And what the Gathering is pretty much an event in which all the Chaos Emeralds from around the universe were gathered into his own city. And yeah, in the Archie comics, there are like multiple Chaos Emeralds. It's not just 7, it's millions. So we're going to talk about that some other day as well. And what happens in this event is that Sonic, Shadow, and Tails try to stop him. And even Super Sonic turns super to fight 8 AM. And at this point, he doesn't know that it's Tommy. But by the end, Tommy somehow takes a little bit of control over himself and is able to show Sonic that it's actually Tommy. And just say his goodbyes, because in order to stop his violence, he knows he can't stop himself. He's going to revert back to 8 AM. So what he does is that he sacrifices himself. He goes back into the Egg Fleet, and he just allows himself to be destroyed. That's really sad, to be honest. Like, he just sacrificed himself because he knows that if he doesn't do it, then 8 AM would destroy everyone. And he just did something for the greater good. He just sacrificed himself so that no one else would get hurt. And that was really bad. And Sonic and Tails, they were really sad about that. And yeah, Tommy was really an old-time friend of Sonic. So there you have it. Those are the top 5 times that the Archie Sonic series got pretty serious, if you ask me. Yeah, I'd say these are pretty serious. If you have any more that you think that they're more serious than this, or just more serious ones in general, you can say in the comment section below. Just tell me so we can make another video about this, and I'll definitely have more videos to talk about regarding Archie Sonic in the future, such as what I just talked about before with the Chaos Emeralds, having multiple Chaos Emeralds like that. So yeah, we'll talk about those in the near future, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys later. Peace.